Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be working on Musette from English Suite number 3 by J.S. Bach. This one does have some new stuff. We are in cut time again. We do have some interesting stuff. We've got some second position playing around with some extended ones. We do have a new marking, which is going to be caesura. It's going to look like railroad tracks. And yeah, other than that, it's relatively straightforward. There's just some tricky stuff, and then tying everything together is really where the focus comes in on this one. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and hear what it sounds like, and then start breaking it down into parts and pieces, and we'll go from there. Let me double check my tempo. Okay. So, 1, 2, 1. Okay. So, looking at this, we do have some simple phrases. We do have a repeat. So we have a 2-beat pickup in measure 1. We run into a phrase that runs through the first 2 beats of measure 5, and then we have the same 2-beat or 2-note pickup leading into measure 9 halfway through. And then we have something different leading into the B section, or the repeated section. So let's go ahead and play pickup through measure 5, the second beat of measure 5. Not terribly anything surprising here. Keep in mind, we are starting a mezzo forte. We do have a crescendo and then a decrescendo in measure 4. And then when we go to start the next phrase, we'll be starting in mezzo piano. So we will be wanting to take that decrescendo in measure, at the tail end of measure 4, down a significant ways. It'll be 2 full slots, so to speak. So go ahead. We'll pick something slower. Yeah, that'll be good. So 1, or actually it'll be 3, 4, and then we play. So ready? 3, 4. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. Keep in mind, we need to have the crescendo. Looking at the dynamics here, beginning of measure 4, the crescendo should take us up to forte, and then we will need to decrescendo down from forte to mezzo forte to mezzo piano. So that'll be down 3 whole notches. So let's go ahead and try that one more time. So, yeah, 3, 4. The descending tied notes, tail end of measure 4, are a really, really common theme. You will see that a lot throughout classical music. Kind of interesting that it's introduced here. yeah, it's a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and move on from halfway through measure 4, treating that as kind of the pickup into measure, or halfway through measure 5 into measure 6, we'll treat that as kind of the pickup. And then we can go from there. So halfway through, I'll count the first 2 beats of measure 5, and then we'll go ahead and start playing. So 1, 2. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. Keep in mind that is supposed to be mezzo piano. And at this point, we're focusing on clarity of tone. We want to make sure that we're playing nice in-tune notes. We want to make sure that our fingerings are correct. We want to make sure that we're catching all of the slurs. And since dynamically, in terms of sound adjustment, we just have the crescendo and decrescendo there. Yeah, it's not terribly complicated there. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. That'll be halfway through measure 5 to the halfway through measure 9. It's also kind of interesting because we're not working in a 4-bar phrase. We're working in a broken 4-bar phrase here, but it's not just aligning with the system breaks on the page. And that is something, especially in college, I was really, really cognizant of going through and making sure that I numbered all of my measures. This book is really handy because the beginning of each system, the beginning of each line, is numbered for you, so you can kind of figure that out kind of quickly. But especially in college when the conductor would be working on one particular chunk or one particular section, or was needing to get a transition that was kind of in a weird place, he'd call out just random measure numbers, tap his stand twice to get you the tempo, and then lead into it. And so the ability to rapidly figure out exactly where you need to be is really, really handy. Okay, halfway through measure 5, we'll treat that as a pickup into measure 6, and then we'll go through the end of the phrase in measure 9. So, one more time. Keep in mind it is mezzo piano. We do have the crescendo, decrescendo, and then we'll go from there. So, halfway through measure 5. 1, 2. Okay. Now, we have something kind of par for the course here. We're at a first finger on the A, which will give us a B note. We need to play a D with a second finger there. So this is the transition. That one's going to be a really common transition, especially into second position. Second position. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. So let's go ahead and work on that particular transition a couple of times. Also, note to those who are capable of it, this is getting to be the length of beard that I start getting things caught in my strings, which is super annoying. So keep that in mind if you partake of that particular stylistic choice. I'm probably going to wind up chopping mine significantly shorter here fairly quick. So, measure 9, let's go ahead and just work on those first 2 notes. Just that transition. So it'll be the B, first finger on the A, not paying attention to bowings, anything like that. And then we're going to hit that D on the second finger. And if you're not entirely sure about your tuning, just drone your next lower string, your D string. And that'll help you get that. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that you don't want to do is in the middle of playing music. You don't want to just... You don't want to slide into it. Technically, that's a glissando. Those have their own particular way of being called for as a stylistic and thematic choice. Um, in this instance, it is not needed, nor is it called for. So you want to make sure that as you're practicing, you want to make sure that you're hitting that note. The drone, the low D drone will help you find it, but you will need to work on fine-tuning that to where it's not just putting it in the right place and kind of feeling around and then, oh, there it is, okay. And then going from there with it. You definitely want to make sure that you hit that one spot on. So let's go ahead and play. Let's go ahead and play measures 9 and 10. What you're looking for, and with this we will start paying attention to bowings and fingerings now. So taking it slower, this is what you're looking for. Technically I went into measure 11. Oh no. So we have a transition from first position to second position. We have an extended 4, an extended 1, which is going to be extended backward. And then we're back into first position. So first position, second position. Well, technically this is still second position. For open string to give you time to get back into first position, and then the rest of measure 10 is first position. Well, the next chunk is in first position. So again, first position, second position, open. As you're playing that open, shift back to first position, and then first position. So one more time. I'll try to take it in a slower tempo this time. Go ahead and join me so that we can kind of go through there. Occasionally I have a hard time playing, reading, and talking at the same time. It's that whole multitasking thing. Never really my speed. So I will try to talk over my playing for the fingering, or for the hand position. So it'll be either first or second position. Just read the fingerings, and then we will go from there. We'll work on tuning the hand position here in a second. So first position. So da 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 da. 1, 2, 3. Shift. Shift. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. So da 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 da. First, shift, shift. So we have the basics of the shifting down here. Just because you're hopping around on fingerings on notes, it's not a linear thing. So it's not a. You have a. So you're bouncing one note, drop 3 note, or drop 2 notes, up a note, drop 2 notes, up a note, drop 2 notes. It can mess with people if you're not paying attention. So let's go ahead and work on the fingerings here and work on getting things in tune. So starting on the second half of measure 9, let's go ahead and start with that second position, second finger on the D. So you should hear the D. The E doesn't really have a drone note that'll ring with it. The C definitely will, though. So let's go ahead and play just note for note, not paying attention to durations, anything along those lines. Let's work on cleaning up the intonation here. So D, we're going to play with the drone. We'll play the fourth finger E. The extended first finger C. drone. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. So the D with a lower drone. Fourth finger with a D drone. Extended 1C. Check it against your low C. And then your D with a lower D drum. So that should really help you get everything kind of locked in. Off the top of your head, learning what the different intervals sound like can be really, really hard. Differentiating between an octave, a octave plus a minor second, octave plus a major second, and then a minor third, major third. So you can hear all of these things. Pianos are a lot clearer to hear them on. There's a whole bunch of music theory and a whole bunch of side stuff that you can run with that. But learning what the different intervals are so that you can hear them and figure out when things are in tune are going to be what allows you to start building chords a whole lot easier. Major chords as well as minor chords. And then you get into augmented and diminished and all that kind of stuff, and I don't like playing them because they don't sound good to my ear, so can't make me. But we're getting slightly far afield here. So playing the intervals is going to be very, very good for figuring out not only the resonance of your individual instrument, but also starting to get those sounds in your brain so that you can tell when you are in tune and when you are not in tune. So let's go ahead and play the pick up to measure 10. Just the second half of measure 9 real quick. We'll double check the intonation there, and then we'll do the same thing in the first half of measure 10. Just because we're playing with the exact same notes, then we have an open note, and then we can practice that transition back to first position. So let's go ahead and do the second half of measure 9. Starting on that second finger D, playing the lower drone, playing the E with a D drone, playing the C with a low C, playing the D with a lower D drone, takes us to the first note in measure 10. Then we're going to play that we're going to play the extended 1C, then the open A, transition back to first position, and then 1. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. We'll just play it in speed, just in a slow tempo. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. One more time. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and play that. We'll play all of measure 9 and all of measure 10. So it's still that 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. I almost started on a down bow, which would have thrown the bowing for the rest of the thing off. So keep in mind when we start measure 9, that is an up bow. So 1, 2, 3. One of the things when you're in second position to hit that natural C, it helps if I think about rolling that finger back. So I've got my thumb underneath, I've got my second finger here. It allows me to kind of roll, which is oddly enough the beginnings of how you do vibrato, which is that kind of sound that you get. But with these two fingers as pivot, if I think about rolling my hand back, at least for my hand size, that gives me just about where I need to be. And it takes a little bit of adjustment. You can hear that I can overshoot it and go too low, I can shoot and about hit it, and I can shoot too short and be too sharp. and that is literally all practice. That was also an intro line from somewhere that I just played, and I can't remember where it is, but it's some big orchestral Howard Shore number. I think it was Lord of the Rings. It was Lord of the Rings. Okay. Anyway, sorry, musical tidbit that goes, oh, hey, things! So let's go ahead and play measures 9 and measure 10, and then we will go through and move forward so that we can get off of this particular part, because I'm sure that you are about as tired of hearing it as I am of playing it. So, measure 9 into measure 10. You know what? Let's just go ahead and play. Let's just play the entire measure 9 through to the repeat. We'll take a look at it. We'll just play through it, and then we'll go through and we'll break stuff down. So measure 9 to the ending before, and just don't take the repeat. So still at that slower. 1, 2, 3. So I definitely got backwards on bowings there. But what we just did, if you hadn't played through this already, is called sight reading. Basically, you don't know what you are going to play. You have to read the music. It's the equivalent of opening a book you've never read and reading the book. Normally, most people would read through a book one time, set it down, they're done. They don't need to perfect the book. They don't need to memorize the book. These kind of things. Music is slightly different in that you usually are working on gaining a very intimate familiarity with the tones, intonation, bowing, slurs, all of the articulation that goes into making a song, as opposed to like a normal book. But you can gain a lot more depth from this. Playing music, studying music is akin to studying a text, looking at the deeper relation between themes and ideas and recurring characters, recurring themes, recurring actions, those kind of things, and looking for the connections between them. That would be on par with studying music, as we are doing here, so that you can gain a deeper understanding of of what the music is, instead of just a bunch of chicken scratch on a page. And so being able to sight read, being able to look at something having never seen it before, sit down for a half a second, figure out what key you're in, figure out what your time signature is, and figure out how fast you're supposed to be playing it, and just cut bait and run. Let's see how it goes. And so sight reading is definitely a skill to work on. It's hard to cultivate because keeping yourself honest can be really hard. I know it was for me. Keeping yourself honest is very hard. But in today's world, the ability to just look up a song title, what instrument it's on, and then find it on YouTube or something along those lines, and hear exactly how it's supposed to be played by somebody who knows what they're doing, is a serious boon to somebody starting on the instrument. Or, as we are here, moving forward with the instrument after gaining a basic understanding of how to play. So, now that I am done blathering, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. Starting at measure 10, we have the lead up to measure 10. Then, in measure 13, we have a caesura. That is going to be the railroad tracks that I mentioned earlier, which, oddly enough, is also the basis for the modern pause button. Those two vertical lines, these are slightly slanted. And that means that you stop making noise with the instrument entirely. It is a pause on the playing. Usually, unless you're doing a grand pause, a GP, which is denoted in a different way, with like a performance group like a quartet or a chamber orchestra or a full orchestra for that matter, grand pauses are slightly different. These are a very slight stop. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It is a very slight stop in the music. Usually with this kind of a setup, I don't even really interrupt the rhythm really. I just make sure that my bow is off of the string. And that's why you'll actually see me. My bow completely comes off and I reset. There's a couple points in here off the top of my head, I can't remember what measures they are, where it is a down bow, you're ending on a down bow, you have a caesura, and you're starting on a down bow again. And I will literally play, stop, so play, come off the string, and then come back to a down, which would technically be a circle bow, but that's neither here nor there. So measure 10 through first half of measure 13. Let's go ahead and play that. Since we've been working on the beginning of measure 10, I'm not going to break that down any further. We are still in mezzo forte. We do have a decrescendo tail end 10 into 11, dropping us to a mezzo piano. So we do need to drop one dynamic level, and then we will have a recurring kind of a falling theme in measures 11 and 12. So let's go ahead and play 10 through first half of 13. 1, 2, 3. And I started on the wrong bow. That is down, up, down, up. Yep, so we're starting on an up bow there at measure 10. You might want to notate that. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. We don't have anything terribly out of the ordinary here. It is going to be relatively straightforward. So let's do that one more time. Starting in second position, don't forget that. And then we are starting on an up bow. So 1, 2, 3. Next section is going to be first half of 13 in through first half of 17. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we do have the caesura. We're putting a pause on that for a second. Measure 14, we have another transition into second position. So that will be a... In this one, in measure 14, we do have something that we kind of avoided successfully before. We don't have an open string that we get to play in the middle of a shift. So we have the pick up to measure 14, nothing out of the ordinary. Second finger. So you are going to, so you're going to have a string shift there, or a string change there from the A string of that B to the G on the second finger on the D. Just, it's a very slight pause, and you want to make sure that you don't accidentally touch the A string with your second finger as you're coming down to make that shift. Otherwise, the string will do weird things. You can also scream at you, and it just it's not whoopty. So let's go ahead and break down measure 14 real quick. We'll go ahead and start in first position, and we'll just play it nice and easy, not paying attention to note duration, and then we will go through and get everything in there. So starting on that C, and then a B, and then try to make this without sliding into it. You're going to put your second finger where your fourth finger normally goes on the D. You can tell immediately if you're in tune because your instrument will vibrate back at you. Then we have an E, back to a C natural. And then we are shifting here, which is something that I hadn't been doing. I was actually doing the wrong fingering. Cool. So we're on a natural C. And then we shift to we shift our first finger back a little bit to hit a normal fourth finger D. And then first finger. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. We'll try to keep the note durations. We're not going to pay attention to note durations. But we will pay attention to bowing. because we have it's that falling figure again, but we have a shift in between two of those that we need to pay attention to. So starting on the C, B, shift up to the G, E, C, shift, D, and you end on a B, I apologize. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. So starting with a down, up, down, starting with an up bow, I apologize. So it'll be a C, B, shift to a G, E on a down bow, to a C, up bow, shift to a D. Let's do that one more time, and we'll take the note durations into account. So down, up. Starting on an up bow. 1, 2, 3. And I did the second finger shift again. I apologize. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. Starting on the second finger, measure 14. 1, 2, 3. One more time, just to get it a little bit more cemented. 1, 2, 3. I almost missed that shift again because I keep wanting to do that 2 and then shift in the middle of that to a 1. Okay, let's go ahead and tie that into the beginning of the phrase with that pickup with the, and then we will continue. There shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary for the rest of the deal. Just pay attention to your bowings and how it comes. So, second half of 13 through to the second half of 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Let's do that one more time and then we can move on. Halfway through 13. And 1, 2. Keep in mind you do have a decrescendo the last half of measure 16. Okay, let's go ahead and do halfway through measure 17 through to the first repeat there. Shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary, really. You don't even have any second position. You do have a diminuendo last half of measure 20 going into that G, and then you are back to mezzo forte as the entrance back into that repeat section. So let's go ahead and do second half of 17. 1, 2. So let's look at the last last 3 4-note slurs in 19 leading into 20. It's a super simple string change. You're covering 3 strings in 4 notes. 1, 3, 4, open. I ran out of bow there. Those just take a little bit of practice. They look kind of intimidating because you're like, where do fingers and strings, and just takes a little bit of time. The biggest thing is making sure that you have a clean fingering. You can get out of tune. You can get those screeches really easy. I couldn't duplicate it because I try really hard not to. It takes conscious thought. Yeah, I can't pull it off. Occasionally you will catch me doing it though. So those are simple repeating fingering patterns. You just need to make sure that you have your hand up so that you're not doing a bar chord, you're doing individual notes on individual strings. So that you're not hitting both strings at the same time. With like a finger, but not fully depressing it, and that's how you get the it's almost pinch harmonics. It's false harmonics is what it is. So enough of my blathering yet again. Let's go ahead and do halfway through measure 17 through the first repeat. Keep in mind you do shift into second position halfway through that first repeat. So starting halfway through 17. 1. Yeah, you just want those you want them really nice and flowing. And keep in mind bow speed, bow control, and then how high you're lifting it is going to be the everything that controls that. So now that we've covered each of these individual pieces, let's go ahead and play from the measure 10, which is the opening of the repeat, through to the first ending, and pick up to measure 10 because that's where we go into second position. So pick up to measure 10 through to the first ending, because we will be ending on the same thing that we started on. Just so that we can tie all of this together. So, we'll just go ahead and start in second position. So, 1, 2. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that one more time, but we will take that second repeat. So we'll go back to measure 10, because we have the lead-in built into the ending repeat bar there. And then we will play through the end of the song. And the only difference is then we don't shift into second position to repeat the entire process. So, halfway through measure 9, through the repeat, take the repeat back to measure 10. Remember to go ahead and mark it with those big opening brackets so that you can immediately go back to the right place and you don't skip a line or go too far or not go far enough. And then we will play through the second ending, then we can wrap everything up and we can kind of go from there. So, halfway through measure 9, starting in second position, 1, 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the first half of the song to that, and then we will have this one wrapped up. So keep in mind dynamic changes. I usually wind up going through and circling those really big on my paper so I do not miss them. Still manage to. I'm a talented. Keep in mind your shifts into second position. Usually I wind up making a slash entirely through those 5 lines at least in my shorthand, I guess. That big old slash through, like, hey, pay attention, is you need to shift in another position here. Because some songs, you're not just going from first into second. Sometimes you're going into half position. Sometimes you're going into these weird other kind of that technically have names, but I never bothered to learn them because usually they were situational. I know that makes me a terrible cellist, but that's neither here nor there. So keep in mind the positions, places where you need to shift. These are really handy because they are written in underneath. Keep in mind dynamics, and keep in mind fingerings. Fingerings in these books will help you immensely for not only learning the particular material that they want you to learn through executing these books, but it will give you an intro into how things are normally written in the professional world, and how to go about solving particular problems with string crossings and weird notes coming out of nowhere and these kind of things. So when you learn the basic system, then you can figure out how to break it in particular instances. That actually is what leads to like the Bach suites, for example. Everybody knows one of the most famous cello pieces out there. There's 6,000,000,001 different fingerings for the entire thing. Fournier, Rose, just there's dozens and dozens and dozens. Okay, so maybe not 6,000,000,000, but whatever. There's a bunch of different fingerings and additions, and that's what makes a different addition. Is all of the notes are going to be the same, unless it's all of the major notes are going to be the same, unless there are cadenzas, which are supposed to be improvised or composed for the individual player for those particular pieces. It's a kind of a flourish. It's a special watch what I can do kind of a thing. Used to, they were written by the individual musicians, so they could be very simple. They could be very advanced. Paganini was if you want to look at the first rock star, Paganini is definitely in the running for that title, just because of what he did. His cadenzas and those kind of things are still studied to this day. It can be really cool. It can be really simple. But we're not dealing with cadenzas yet. But the different fingerings, the different bowings, the different slurs is what makes up different additions for the same notes. Differently expressed can change the fundamental the fundamental idea, the fundamental presentation of a piece. And so with these, you definitely want to pay attention to what is written. You want to get these slurs, you want to get these fingerings, just so that you can learn how to play this piece as kind of a standard. And then as you move on, you can work on putting your own spin, your own feel onto things as you move forward and as you get more playing experience and as you get better. But right now, we're still learning, and so playing what's written here is definitely important. So pay attention to your fingerings, your bowings, and your slurs, as well as your dynamics, your crescendos, decrescendos, mezzofortes, mezzopianos, all that kind of stuff. So basically, pay attention to everything. Don't miss anything is the point that I'm trying to get at. Things will slip through the cracks, as you could see. I have a real bad tendency of in measure 14. I will try to shift in the middle of a slur just because that's how my brain's wired, and it is something that I actively have to pay attention to. So, enough of my blathering for the third time. Let's go ahead and let's try the piece beginning to end, and then we can bump up the tempo a little bit and then get to about where we need to be. So, I'll give you a full measure and then a half, and then we will go ahead and start. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and play that. Let's go ahead and play everything. Let's go ahead and take that second repeat and not miss it like I have a tendency to do. So one measure, one full measure, and then the half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, well, nicely done. So, we really are starting to move along in this. So, we introduced the caesura today, the railroad tracks. Definitely worked on more second position, and then learned a new song. So one of the things you also want to do is periodically go back, not only through this book, but also through the last one, and just work on stuff that you have worked on before, looking at the sheet music and seeing what else you can kind of tease out of the music. And that will also really, really help. Not only keep the stuff that you have learned kind of fresh in your brain, but also it gives you more, it gives you a lot more depth and insight into some of the older pieces that you've done. So, well, thank you very much for joining me today, and I look forward to next time. Take care.